Are these tarot cards or different chapters in a story being told? And what's the hidden meaning behind the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot Deck? Let's find out! Hello everyone! I'm Dr. Angela Puca and welcome to my symposium. I'm a PhD and a university lecturer, and this is your online resource for the academic study of magic, paganism, shamanism, and all things esoteric. Today's episode is brought to you by the friend of the symposium, James Vitale, who kindly commissioned this video choosing its topic. Thank you so much for doing so, and I hope it brings some value to your journey. The Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot Deck is named after the publisher Rider, the lead creator Arthur Edward Waite, and the artist who created the images on the cards, Pamela Colman Smith. It was published in 1909 and became the first commercially available tarot deck in England, and still stands as the most popular. After the dissolution of the Golden Dawn and the formation of different spin-off groups, one of which was led by Waite, a few of the original members of the order began to divulge the teachings they had learned within the order. So when Aleister Crowley published the Secret Attributions of the Golden Dawn, Waite felt he could publish his tarot deck without infringing any rule of secrecy from the order that substantially influenced the significance and symbolism of his deck. Waite chose Smith to be the artist, to draw his cards, and paid her a flat sum for the commission. In an article Waite wrote for the Occult Review, intending to publicize his deck, he mentions Smith as a very skillful and original artist, and hinted at another contributor, which might have been William Butler Yeats. Having lived between England and the United States, Pamela Colman Smith spent also a few years in Kingston, Jamaica, whose folklore, full of fantastic characters and spirituality, ended up being quite influential on her art, as well as on the otherworldliness of her writing. Smith was first and foremost a storyteller with impressive artistic skills. Denisoff explains that there was an interesting phenomenon occurring in the early 20th century that saw artists relying on the occult, occultists relying on positivist science, and scientists relying on aesthetics to validate something called synaesthesia. These, albeit at times conflicting discourses, offered Smith a synaesthetic model to define the imagination as a sensory experience, and mysticism as a sensory medium. Interestingly, Smith was not at all interested in finding scientific validation for her synaesthesia, an attitude that accords with her free-spirited personality, who had little attraction towards institutionalized training, as shown by her uncompleted degree at the Pratt Institute, as well as at the Golden Dawn's training in natural magic. That said, when it comes to the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot Deck, it is most likely that Smith was following detailed instructions provided by Waite, as he himself states, to be responsible for the symbolism on the cards in his The Pictorial Key to the Tarot. As for the scheme of their cards, Waite and Smith probably drew inspiration from a 15th century Ferrarese deck called Sola Busca. All the cards, except court cards and aces, see indeed Roman numeral numbers at the top, while the trumps are numbered 1 to 21, with the fool being assigned the number 0. Aces, court cards, and trumps bore that name at the bottom of the card, and the suits used are borrowed from the Golden Dawn decks, with the employment of the signs of swords, wands, cups, and pentacles, while the court cards appear more traditional and less inspired by the Golden Dawn scheme. The symbolism found on the cards was elaborated by Waite himself, with clear inspiration from the works of Eliphas Levi, Paul Christian, and Papias. For Waite, the cards were a symbolic representation of the mystic initiation and a metaphor for spiritual rebirth. Speaking of matters and Papias, he stated that they provide a spiritual history of man, or of the soul coming out from the eternal, passing into the darkness of the material body, and returning to the height. As Helen Farley highlights, the astrological and Kabbalistic significance of the tarot trumps was laid out quite clearly by Waite, with the High Priestess resting her foot on a crescent moon and the association between Venus and the Empress through the heart-shaped shield bearing the sigil of Venus that leans against the throne. Similarly, we find a reference to the sign of Aries on the arms of the throne of the emperor. Notably, these correspondences were the same found in the teachings of the Golden Dawn. We also see in the trumps symbols associated with Rosicrucianism, like the recurring roses and crosses represented throughout the major arcana. For instance, the card of the Fool holds a white rose in his left hand, while the Death shows the mystic rose, a symbol of life, on his banner. Waite's tribute to Freemasonry can be appreciated in the black and white pillars of Jachin and Boaz on the Priestess card, and in the presence of the Sphinxes on the Chariot trump. On this latter card, we also find the lingam inspired by Eliphas Levi's use, and here seen in a modified version of the Tarot de Marseille. There are also significant representations of light, such as solar discs, wheels, and arcs, which show the sun's path as a metaphor for the journey of the soul. Gold also plays a substantial symbolic role in this deck and represents the spiritual ascent. It is also essential to highlight that Waite's occult philosophy was infused with Christian mysticism, which is evidenced throughout the cards. Examples being the figure of Eve in the Lover's trump and the 4 living creatures of Ezekiel in the Word card. As you know from my previous video on Arthur Edward Waite, his main focus when engaging with magic and divination was not quite to achieve wealth, love, or other such mundane goals. Waite was ultimately a mystic, and all of his endeavors were aimed at achieving that divine unity he so often talked about. Indeed, in his work The Divine Union, Waite emphasized the role of the mind in translating the mystical experience, even within one's own consciousness. Language is, in fact, inadequate and not in the slightest comparable to the overwhelming transformation of the self that comes with the mystical experience. Waite sees the mystic as an intensely practical person, and the mystical life as an exploration of the self, as well as the most difficult enterprise which can be undertaken by human mind. The final stage of the divine union cannot be attained in this life, but other states can, and having that final flickering goal as a lighthouse guiding one's path appears essential to the mystic's journey. A journey mirrored and aided by this symbolic and arcane deck that was designed to tell stories on lives as much as to read souls. And what do you think about this topic? Do you use or know or have researched this tarot deck? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you again, James Vitale, for commissioning this video, and happy birthday to you. And as for you, my kind viewer, if you like my content and want me to keep the academic fun going, please consider supporting my work with a one-off PayPal donation by joining memberships or my inner symposium on Patreon, where you will get access to our Discord server, monthly lectures, and lots of other perks depending on your chosen tier. And if you did like this video, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the video with your friends, and activate the notification bell so that you never miss out on any of my uploads. Thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned for all the academic fun. Bye for now.